The great hall of the Valthron Palace stretched wide and tall, its walls made of crystal that caught the light from 3 suns. Queen Erin stood in the center, her skin shimmering like broken glass under the bright lights. She was beautiful in the way her people were beautiful, sharp edges and cold perfection. Around her, the nobles of her empire whispered and watched. Today was the day she would marry a human. The thought made her angry. The Valthron Empire had ruled this part of space for 500 years. They had the best ships, the strongest weapons, and the smartest scientists. They had never needed help from anyone. But then the humans came. Humans were new to space. They had only left their planet Earth 50 years ago. They were weak and small compared to most aliens. Their technology was simple. Their ships were slow. Nobody thought they mattered at all. But when Valthron scout ships tried to claim some human colony worlds, the humans fought back. They fought hard. They fought smart. They won battles they should have lost. After 2 years of small fights along the border, the Galactic Council got worried. They didn't want a real war, so the Council suggested a marriage, a union between Queen Erin and a human representative. It would show that both sides wanted peace. It would create a bond between the 2 species. Erin hated the idea. She was a queen. She should marry another royal, someone powerful and worthy. But her advisors told her this was the smart choice. Let the humans think they were important. Give them this small victory. It would avoid a war that might cost lives and credits. So Erin agreed. But she made it clear she would treat this human as nothing more than a decoration in her palace. The human was supposed to arrive that morning. Erin expected someone impressive. Maybe a war hero who had fought in the border conflicts. Maybe a famous scientist or a skilled diplomat. Someone who would at least look the part of a royal consort. Instead, she got Doyen. He walked into the great hall wearing simple clothes, not even a proper uniform. He was of average height for a human, which made him shorter than most Valthrons. His hair was dark and neat. His face was calm and ordinary. He didn't look like a soldier or a leader. He looked like someone you might pass on the street and never remember. The Valthron nobles started laughing. Some tried to hide it behind their hands, but Erin heard them. She felt embarrassed. This was who the humans sent. This nobody? Doyen walked forward until he stood in front of Erin. He bowed low, his movements respectful and precise. Your Majesty, he said in passable Valthron language. My name is Doyen. I hope we can find understanding between our peoples. His voice was quiet. Not nervous, just quiet. Like he was introducing himself at a casual meeting. Not a royal wedding ceremony. Erin looked down at him. You are the human representative? I am. What is your position? Are you a military commander? A government official? I'm an engineer, Doyen said. I worked on the trade stations near the border. Building things, fixing things. That's what I do. An engineer. A common worker. The humans had sent a common worker to marry a queen. Erin's chief advisor, Lord Vexen, stepped forward. This is insulting, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. The humans mock us with this choice. Doyen didn't react to the insult. He just kept looking at Erin with those calm, dark eyes. The choice was made by both our governments, Doyen said. I'm here in good faith. If I'm not acceptable, I can leave. But that would mean no alliance, no peace. Just more questions and more problems. He was right, and everyone knew it. If Erin refused this marriage, the whole diplomatic process would fall apart. The council would be angry. The humans would be offended. Everything would get worse. Erin breathed out slowly. The ceremony will proceed. The wedding was cold and formal. Erin spoke her vows in Valthron. Doyen spoke his in both Valthron and the human language called Korean. The words meant nothing to Erin. This was just politics. Just a show for the galaxy. When it was over, Doyen was given quarters in the palace. They were nice rooms, but far from Erin's own chambers. She made it clear without saying anything that he would live separately. He would be her husband in name only. Doyen accepted this without complaint. Thank you for the rooms, he said. They're very comfortable. That first week, Erin barely saw him. She was busy with her duties as queen. Meetings with advisors, decisions about trade and military matters, communications with other worlds. She heard reports about Doyen from the palace staff. He spent most of his time in the workshops in the lower levels of the palace. He asked permission to use the tools there. He fixed small things that were broken, a door that stuck, a light that flickered, a food processor that had stopped working. The servants started to like him. He was polite. He learned their names. He thanked them for their help. He never acted like he was important or better than them. The nobles thought this proved he was weak and useless. Lord Vexen started calling him the handyman as a joke. Other nobles joined in. At formal dinners, they would ignore Doyen completely, or make comments about humans being good at simple labor. Doyen never got angry. He would just nod or smile slightly and go back to eating his food. Aaron watched all this and felt confused. Why didn't he defend himself? Why didn't he demand respect? Did humans have no pride at all? 2 weeks after the wedding, Aaron went to find Doyen in the workshops. She wanted to understand what kind of person she had married, even if it was just a political marriage. She found him sitting at a workbench, surrounded by pieces of machinery. He was working on something complex, one of the palace's environmental regulators that had broken down. The palace engineers had said it couldn't be fixed without replacing the whole unit, which would take weeks. Doyen looked up when Aaron entered. "Your Majesty," he said, standing quickly. "Sit," Aaron said. "What are you doing?" "Fixing this regulator. The control board failed, but I think I can repair it instead of replacing it." Aaron watched as he worked. His hands moved with confidence. He seemed to understand the Valthran technology easily, even though it was different from human machines. "Why do you let them mock you?" Aaron asked suddenly. "The nobles. Why do you accept their insults?" Doyen didn't look up from his work. "Should I fight with them? Argue? Demand they respect me? Yes, you're my consort now. You have status. Status that I didn't earn in their eyes," Doyen said. "They see me as an outsider who took a position I don't deserve. If I demand respect, I'll just make them dislike me more. But if I'm useful, if I'm kind, if I prove myself through actions instead of words, maybe they'll change their minds, maybe they won't. Then I'll still have been useful and kind. That's worth doing for its own sake." Aaron didn't know what to say to that. In Valthran culture, you demanded respect. You showed strength. You made others acknowledge your worth through power. Doyen's approach seemed backwards, weak even. But as she watched him work, she saw the broken regulator start functioning again. Within an hour, he had it completely repaired. Something that would have taken weeks and cost thousands of credits. "There," Doyen said, satisfied. "It should work fine now." He looked at Aaron and smiled. It was a genuine smile, not political or fake. "I know this isn't the marriage you wanted," he said. "I know I'm not who you hoped for, but I'm going to try my best to make this alliance work, for both our peoples." Aaron left the workshop feeling more confused than ever. She had expected a husband she could ignore. Instead, she had this strange, quiet human who fixed things and didn't care about status. She didn't know what to think about Doyen yet. But something told her he was more complicated than he appeared. 3 weeks passed since the wedding. Doyen settled into palace life like he had always been there. He woke early each morning, ate breakfast in the staff dining area instead of the royal hall, and spent his days working. The workshops became his home. He repaired things constantly. The palace was old, and old grand buildings always had things breaking down. A water system here, a power conduit there, communication panels, transport platforms, food storage units. Doyen fixed them all. The maintenance staff loved him. They brought him problems their own engineers couldn't solve. Doyen would study the broken equipment, think for a while, then find solutions. He was good at his work. Really good, but the nobles still laughed at him. At formal dinners, Lord Vexen would make jokes. "How is our handyman today? Fix any toilets?" The other nobles would laugh. Doyen would just nod politely and continue eating. Lady Sarah, one of the queen's cousins, was especially cruel. She would walk past Doyen in the halls and say things just loud enough for him to hear. "I heard humans evolved from animals that lived in trees. Maybe that's why he's so good with his hands." Doyen never responded to these insults. He just kept doing his work. Aaron watched all of this from a distance. She attended her royal duties, managed her empire, and tried not to think about her strange human husband. But she found herself noticing things. She noticed that the palace ran smoother than before. Small problems got fixed quickly. The staff seemed happier. Things just worked better. She noticed that Doyen was learning Valthran properly, not just the simple words for everyday talking, but the formal language, the historical terms, the proper ways to address different ranks of people. He studied in the library every evening. She noticed that he never complained. Not about the mockery, not about his rooms being far from hers, not about being excluded from important meetings. He just accepted everything and kept working. One evening, Erin found herself in the library. She told herself she was there to review some trade documents. But really, she was curious about what Doyen did there every night. He sat at a table surrounded by books, old books about Valthran history, culture, and technology. He was taking notes on a data pad, his face focused and serious. "You're studying," Erin said. Doyen looked up, surprised. He stood quickly. "Your Majesty?" "Yes, I'm trying to understand your people better." "Why?" "Because I live here now. Because I'm part of your world. It seems important to understand how things work." Erin sat down across from him. She picked up one of the books. It was about the formation of the Valthran Empire, written in old formal language that even many Valthrans found difficult to read. "You can understand this?" she asked slowly. "I have to look up a lot of words. But yes, why do you bother? You're just a consort, a symbolic position." Doyen was quiet for a moment. "Is that what you think I am?" "That's what this marriage is. A symbol." "Maybe it started that way," Doyen said. "But symbols can become real if you work at it. I'd like to be actually useful, not just symbolic." Before Erin could respond, an alarm sounded through the palace. It was a medical emergency alarm. Erin stood immediately, her training taking over. Doyen followed her as she rushed to the medical wing. The palace doctor, Physician Karth, met them outside the medical center. He looked worried. "Your Majesty, we have a serious problem. There's a disease outbreak in the lower city. 30 people sick so far, and it's spreading fast." "What disease?" Erin demanded. "We don't know. The symptoms are like Varan fever, but our treatments aren't working. The patients keep getting worse." Erin's blood went cold. Varan fever was deadly. If it was spreading and they couldn't treat it, hundreds could die. "Show me the patient data," Doyen said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Karth frowned. "This is not your concern, human." "I studied xenobiology," Doyen said, "and human medicine has some different approaches than Valthran medicine. Maybe I can help. Maybe I can't, but let me look." Karth looked at Erin. She hesitated, then nodded. "Show him." They went into the medical center. Karth pulled up screens showing patient symptoms, test results, and treatment attempts. Doyen studied everything carefully. He asked questions about Valthran biology, about what medicines they had tried, about how the disease was spreading. "It's not Varan fever," Doyen said after an hour of study. "The symptoms are similar, but look at the progression rate. And these markers in the blood work. They're different." "Then what is it?" Karth asked impatiently. "I think it's a variant, a mutation of Varan fever. That's why your normal treatments aren't working." Doyen pulled up a screen showing molecular structures. "On Earth, we had diseases that mutated all the time. We learned to adapt our treatments. You need to modify your antiviral compound. Add this element, reduce this one, change the delivery method." "That's just speculation," Karth said. "So test it," Doyen said calmly. "Run a simulation. If I'm wrong, you've lost an hour. If I'm right, you save lives." Karth looked at Erin again. She nodded. The simulation took 30 minutes. When the results came back, Karth's face showed shock. "It works. The modified treatment would be effective." "Then make it and use it," Erin ordered. They worked through the night. Doyen stayed in the medical center, helping Karth's team modify their treatments and prepare enough medicine for all the sick people. By morning, the first patients received the new treatment. By afternoon, they were getting better. By evening, the crisis was over. 30 people would live who might have died. Karth found Doyen in the medical center's break room. The human was drinking something hot from a cup, looking tired but satisfied. "You saved them," Karth said. "I don't understand." "You're an engineer." "Engineers have to know a lot of different things," Doyen said. "On Earth, we learn broadly. Medicine, biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics. You never know what knowledge you'll need. That's unusual." "That's human," Doyen said with a small smile. News of what happened spread through the palace. The servants had already liked Doyen. Now they respected him deeply. Some of the lower-ranking nobles started treating him with more courtesy. But Lord Vexen and the high nobles still dismissed it. "He got lucky," Vexen said at dinner that night. "Any competent person could have figured out that treatment. Then why didn't you?" asked Lady Mira, a younger noble. "Why didn't any of our doctors?" Vexen had no answer to that. Erin started spending more time around Doyen. Not in an obvious way. She was still the queen, and he was still just the consort. But she found reasons to be where he was. She asked him questions about Earth, about humans, about his life before coming to the palace. Doyen answered everything honestly. He talked about growing up in a city called Seoul, about studying at a university, about his family, his mother who was a teacher, his father who was a pilot, about working on space stations, meeting different aliens, learning how things worked in the wider galaxy. "Weren't you afraid?" Aaron asked. "Coming here alone? Marrying someone you'd never met? Living among aliens who don't respect you? Fear doesn't help," Doyen said. "Either things work out or they don't. Being afraid just makes the experience worse. So I choose not to be afraid. You can choose that. Humans have to. Our world was dangerous, is still dangerous. If we let fear control us, we'd never do anything." Aaron thought about that a lot. 6 weeks after the wedding, there was another formal dinner. Lord Vexen was telling a story about hunting dangerous creatures on a jungle world. He was boasting about his bravery. "Of course humans wouldn't understand," Vexen said, looking at Doyen. "They come from a safe, easy world. They've never faced real danger." Doyen looked up from his plate. "Earth isn't safe," he said quietly. "We have storms that destroy entire cities, earthquakes that crack the ground open, volcanoes that bury thousands, animals that can kill you in seconds, diseases that spread like fire. We even have plants that can poison you just by touching them." The table went quiet. "Our ancestors survived all of that," Doyen continued. "No natural armor, no claws or fangs, no advanced technology for most of our history, just intelligence and determination. So no, Lord Vexen, Earth wasn't easy. Nothing about being human is easy. We just don't complain about it." Vexen stared at him, speechless. Doyen went back to eating his dinner. Aaron hid a smile behind her hand. Maybe her husband was more interesting than anyone thought. The alarm came at dawn. Aaron woke to flashing lights and urgent messages on her communication panel. She read the first message and felt her blood freeze. The colony on Verath Prime was under attack. Verath Prime was a small world that both humans and Valthrans had settled together. It was supposed to be a symbol of their new alliance. 2,000 Valthrans lived there. 3,000 humans. Now an enemy fleet had appeared in orbit. The Crethon Collective. A hostile empire from the far side of the galaxy. They had been quiet for years, but now they were expanding aggressively. And they had chosen Verath Prime as their first target. Aaron called her war council immediately. Within an hour, every important military leader in the Valthran Empire was in the strategy room. Admiral Threxus stood at the main display showing the tactical situation. "The Crethon fleet has 37 warships," Threxus said. "They're blockading the planet. Our forces on the ground are holding for now, but without support they'll fall within days." "How many ships can we send?" Aaron asked. 24 combat ships. Maybe 6 more if we pull defense forces from other systems." "The humans are sending ships too," added Commander Vexus. "Their closest fleet is 3 days away." 16 ships. Aaron did the math quickly. Even combined, they would be outnumbered. But they had to try. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered. "We leave within the hour." As the council started to break up, Doyen spoke from the back of the room. Everyone had forgotten he was there. Consorts usually didn't attend military meetings, but Aaron had allowed him in to observe. "I'm coming with you," he said. Admiral Threxus laughed. "This is war, human, not fixing broken machines." "I'm an engineer," Doyen said calmly. "Ships break down in combat. Systems fail. You might need someone who can repair things quickly." "He has a point," Aaron said before Threxus could argue. "He comes." The fleet departed 2 hours later. Aaron's flagship, the Stellar Crown, led 23 other Valthran warships toward Verath Prime. It would take them 30 hours to reach the colony. Doyen stayed out of the way during the journey. He found a spot in the observation deck where he could watch the crew work. Aaron noticed him studying everything. The way orders were given, how the ship systems operated, how the tactical displays showed information. He asked questions sometimes. Simple questions that seemed almost childlike. "Why do you position your ships this way? How fast can your weapons recharge? What happens if the communication system fails during battle?" The crew answered him politely but dismissively. What could a human engineer possibly understand about space warfare? They arrived at Verath Prime to find the situation even worse than expected. The Crethon fleet had grown to 42 ships. They had reinforced. The colony was taking heavy bombardment. Parts of the main settlement were already destroyed. Admiral Threxus called an immediate strategy meeting in the war room. All the ship captains attended remotely through holographic displays. Doyen stood in the corner watching and listening. "We can't win a direct engagement," Threxus said bluntly. "They outnumber us 2-1. Our only option is a fighting retreat. We'll hit them once, draw some ships away from the planet, then jump out, save what forces we can." "You mean abandon the colony?" Aaron said coldly. "Yes, Your Majesty. I'm sorry, but the mathematics are clear. We cannot win this battle." Several captains nodded in agreement. The situation was hopeless. "No," Aaron said. "We hold, we fight. Those are our people down there. Your Majesty, may I see the fleet disposition?" Doyen's quiet voice interrupted. Everyone turned to stare at him. Threxus's face showed pure contempt. "This is not a game, human. This is real war." "I understand that," Doyen said. "May I see it anyway?" Aaron remembered the medical crisis, the repaired machines, the calm confidence in this man who never seemed to panic or boast. "Show him," she ordered. Threxus pulled up the tactical display. It showed both fleets, the Crethon ships in a standard blockade formation around the planet, the Valthran and human fleets approaching from different vectors. Doyen studied it for exactly 30 seconds. His eyes moved across the display, taking in distances, ship types, orbital mechanics, and firing ranges. Then he started talking. "The Crethon formation has 3 weak points," he said, pointing to spots on the display. "Here, here, and here. Their heavy cruisers are positioned to support each other, but there are gaps. If you micro-jump your fastest ships into these positions, you split their fleet into 3 sections that can't easily support each other. Micro-jumping in combat is extremely risky," Threxus objected. "Less risky than a direct assault," Doyen continued. He pulled up another screen. "Your orbital platforms around the colony, they're listed as destroyed, but these 3 are just damaged. If you can get repair teams down there fast, you can bring them back online. That gives you additional firepower from fixed positions." He kept talking, his voice steady and calm. He outlined a complex battle plan that involved coordinated jumps, feints, trap formations, and using the planet's gravity well to their advantage. He identified which Crethon ships were supply vessels disguised as warships. He explained how to use communication jamming at specific moments to create confusion in the enemy fleet. Everyone in the war room stared at him in shock. This wasn't basic tactical thinking. This was advanced military strategy at a level most of them had never seen. "This is impossible," Threxus said weakly. "No civilian could devise this kind of plan." "Will it work?" Aaron asked. Threxus looked at the plan again. He ran some calculations on his command pad. His expression slowly changed from contempt to surprise to grudging respect. "It might actually work," he admitted. "Then we do it," Aaron ordered. "Execute his plan exactly as he described." The battle began an hour later. The Valthran fleet jumped in precisely where Doyen had indicated. The Crethon fleet, caught off guard, scrambled to respond. Within minutes, they were split into 3 confused groups. Repair teams landed on the planet under the cover of the chaos. They worked frantically to restore the orbital platforms. 2 hours into the battle, the platforms came back online and started firing on the Crethon ships from below. The human fleet arrived and immediately understood what the Valthrans were doing. They coordinated perfectly, attacking the weakest Crethon group and destroying 4 ships before the enemy could regroup. The battle lasted 6 hours. It was brutal and intense. But when it ended, the Crethon fleet was in full retreat. 12 of their ships were destroyed. The rest fled the system in disorder. The Valthran and human fleets had won a complete victory. The colony was saved. In the aftermath, Admiral Threxus came to find Doyen. The human was in the engineering section, helping repair some damage the flagship had taken during the fighting. "Who are you?" Threxus asked bluntly. "Really? No engineer could do what you did." Doyen looked up from the panel he was working on. "I am an engineer." "I told you the truth." "Then how?" "On Earth we study many things. Engineering, yes, but also history, strategy, science, art, philosophy. We believe in broad education, and I've always been interested in military history, ancient battles, modern space combat, tactics and strategy. It was a hobby." "A hobby," Threxus repeated, stunned. "We're a young species," Doyen said. "We've only been in space for 50 years. But we've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We learned a lot about warfare in that time. Every human student learns this history. It's part of how we understand ourselves. Threxus shook his head in disbelief. You're all like this? All humans? More or less. Some more specialized, some less. But yes, we tend to be adaptable. News of the victory spread quickly. Within days, the entire galaxy knew what happened at Vareth Prime. And they knew it was a human, a simple engineer, who had turned certain defeat into decisive victory. Back at the palace, Aaron called Doyen to her private chambers. It was the first time he had been there since the wedding. You lied to me, she said when he arrived. No, Your Majesty. I told you exactly what I am. I'm an engineer from Earth. You didn't tell me you were a military genius. I'm not. I just study history and think about problems. Any human with my education could have done the same thing. That thought terrified Aaron more than anything. If ordinary humans were this capable, what were their actual military specialists like? Why didn't Earth send a warrior or a general to marry me? She asked. Someone who would have impressed us from the start? Doyen smiled slightly. Would you have trusted a warrior? You would have seen them as a threat. Someone to watch carefully. Someone who might try to gain power. But an engineer? A simple worker? Someone you could dismiss and ignore? That person could earn trust naturally. So this was all planned. Not planned. Hoped for. Earth wanted this alliance to work. They sent someone who could prove human worth through actions, not through demands or threats. Aaron sat down feeling overwhelmed. I've underestimated you from the beginning. Most people do, Doyen said gently. Humans look ordinary. We're not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest in the galaxy, but we're survivors. We adapt, we learn. We never give up. Those traits aren't obvious until you see them in action. What else haven't you told me about humans? A lot, Doyen admitted. But I think you're starting to understand now. We're not just another species. We're something different. Something the galaxy hasn't seen before. Aaron looked at her husband with new eyes. The quiet, unassuming engineer who had let nobles mock him, who had fixed machines and studied Boo after the victory at Vareth Prime. Everything changed in the palace. Nobles who had mocked Doyen now greeted him with respect. Lord Vexen stopped making jokes. Lady Sarah actually bowed when she passed him in the halls. Doyen handled this the same way he had handled the mockery, with quiet acceptance and no boasting. He went back to his workshops. He kept fixing things. He continued studying in the library. But Aaron couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. Her husband had saved an entire colony with 30 seconds of thinking. What else could humans do that the galaxy didn't know about? She started spending more time with Doyen. Not just brief conversations now, but long talks that stretched late into the night. She asked him about Earth, and he told her stories. He told her about Earth's history. Wars that had killed millions, plagues that had wiped out entire cities, natural disasters that had destroyed civilizations, ice ages that should have ended humanity completely. But you survived, Aaron said. We survived, Doyen agreed. Not because we were strong, not because we had natural weapons or armor. We survived because we learned to cooperate, to plan, to adapt. When the environment tried to kill us, we changed how we lived. When diseases came, we developed medicine. When other humans threatened us, we built better defenses. Every challenge made us stronger. That sounds exhausting. It is. But it's also why we're still here. Aaron started accessing Earth's historical records. Doyen helped her set up the proper connections to human databases. What she found shocked her. Humanity had gone from primitive hunters to space travelers in just 10,000 years. Most species took 50,000 years or more to make that journey. Some took 100,000 years. But more than the speed of development, it was the constant struggle that amazed her. Humans had never had it easy. Every step forward came with blood and sacrifice. They had fought themselves, their world, and now they were ready to face the galaxy. Why did Earth send you specifically? Aaron asked one evening. They were in his workshop. He was teaching her how to repair a common type of power coupling.
You said you were ordinary, but they must have chosen you for a reason. Doyen's hands paused in their work.
They chose me because I'm a good example of what humans can be. I'm educated. I'm patient. I can solve problems. But I'm not special. Earth has billions of people like me, some better at certain things, some worse, but all capable. That's terrifying. Why? Because if you're ordinary and you can do what you do, what can your best people do? Doyen smiled. Want to meet some other humans? There's a cultural exchange event happening next week. Humans from the colony ship program are visiting. I can introduce you. The event was held in one of the palace's large reception halls. About 40 humans attended, along with 100 Valthran nobles and officials. It was supposed to be a friendly gathering to improve relations. Aaron arrived with Doyen and immediately noticed something. The humans all looked ordinary, just like Doyen. They wore simple clothes. They talked and laughed casually. Nothing about them seemed impressive or threatening. But as Aaron talked to them, she discovered something disturbing. Every single one of them had multiple skills. She met Mina, a woman who worked as a botanist on a colony world. But Mina had also trained in survival skills, emergency medicine, and spoke 5 languages. Why do you need survival training if you're a botanist? Aaron asked. Colony worlds can be dangerous, Mina said cheerfully. Plants I study might be poisonous. Equipment might fail. Weather might turn bad. I need to keep myself and my team alive while doing my research. So I trained for it. Aaron met Junho, who taught children at a human school on a space station. But Junho had military combat training, engineering skills, and could pilot 3 different types of spacecraft. Teaching is my passion, Junho explained. But I served in Earth's defense forces for 5 years before that. Most humans do some kind of service. We learn skills that might seem unrelated, but they all prove useful eventually. She met Yuna, a chef who ran a restaurant on a trade station. But Yuna had advanced degrees in chemistry and xenobiology. She used her knowledge to create food that was safe and delicious for multiple alien species. Cooking is chemistry, Yuna said simply. If you understand how molecules interact, you can create amazing things. Every human Aaron talked to was the same. They had main jobs, main interests, but underneath that, they had training in combat, or medicine, or technology, or languages, or science. They were all prepared for anything. You train everyone this way? Aaron asked Doyen later. Not just your soldiers or specialists? We encourage it, Doyen said. Earth isn't safe. Space isn't safe. Life isn't safe. So we prepare our people. We teach them to be useful in multiple ways. That way, no matter what happens, they can handle it. But that must take so much time, so much effort. Yes. But the alternative is depending on others for everything. Humans don't like that. We like to be capable ourselves. Aaron thought about Valthran culture. They specialized. If you were a scientist, you studied one type of science deeply. If you were a soldier, you focused only on warfare. If you were an artist, that was your entire life. Humans did the opposite. They spread their knowledge wide. A little bit of everything. That made them flexible in ways Valthrans weren't. Over the following weeks, Aaron dove deeper into understanding humanity. She watched videos from Earth. She read their literature. She studied their philosophy. One thing became clear. Humans were survivors on a level the galaxy had never seen. Earth wasn't just a difficult world. It was a death world. A planet so hostile that most species would have gone extinct within a generation. Gravity that was higher than most species could handle. Weather that changed violently without warning. Diseases that evolved and adapted constantly. Predators that were faster and stronger than humans. Even the plants could kill. And somehow soft, weak, clever humans had conquered it all. We call it a death world, Doyen explained. There are only 3 other planets in known space that are harder to survive on than Earth. Most species come from garden worlds. Places where food is abundant, weather is mild, and dangers are few. Those species develop slowly, peacefully. But death world species? We evolve fast. We have to. Are there other death world species? Aaron asked. A few. The Krovar from the Andrus system. The Theln from Krathis Prime. But they're rare, and most death world species don't develop advanced technology. They stay aggressive and tribal. Humans are unusual. We're from a death world, but we learned cooperation. That combination makes us different. Aaron started to understand. Humans weren't individually superior to other species. They weren't stronger or smarter or more advanced. But they had something else, a bone-deep determination that came from thousands of generations of barely surviving. One night, Aaron asked Doyen a direct question. Why are you really here? Not the diplomatic answer. The truth. Doyen was quiet for a long moment. They were in Aaron's private chambers. Over the past few months, he had started spending more time there. Not as a distant husband anymore, but as a real partner. Humans are new to the galaxy, he said finally. We're weak compared to established empires. We have few ships, little territory, no major allies. If the galaxy decides we're a threat, they could wipe us out easily. So the marriage is protection. If you and I succeed, if our peoples truly ally, then humanity has a powerful friend. The Valthran Empire would defend Earth if needed. That buys us time to grow stronger. That's very calculated. Yes, but that doesn't mean it's not real. Doyen looked at her directly. I came here for diplomatic reasons, but I've stayed because I respect you. I admire you. I want this to work not just for our peoples, but for us. Erin felt something shift in her chest. Somewhere along the way, she had stopped thinking of Doyen as just a political tool. He had become important to her. His quiet strength, his constant competence, his honest way of dealing with the world. I underestimated you, she said. I underestimated all humans. Most species do. We look ordinary. We seem simple. We don't have obvious strengths. But we're persistent. We're creative. We never stop learning. Those traits aren't flashy, but they're powerful. I'm starting to see that. Over the next month, Erin changed how she ran her empire. She started adopting some human ideas, cross-training her officials in multiple skills, encouraging broader education, building flexibility into her military and government. Some nobles complained. This wasn't the Valthran way, but Erin didn't care. She had seen what human methods could achieve. She also grew closer to Doyen. He moved into her chambers officially. They spent evenings talking about philosophy, politics, science, and life. They worked on projects together. She taught him about Valthran culture deeply. He taught her about human history and thinking. One evening, sitting together and watching the sunset through the crystal walls, Erin spoke quietly. I was angry when they told me I had to marry you, she admitted. I felt like I was being forced to accept something beneath me. I know, Doyen said, but now I'm glad. You've taught me so much. About humans, about strength, about what really matters. You've taught me too, Doyen said. About patience. About leadership. About staying true to yourself even when it's hard. Erin leaned against him. It felt natural now, comfortable. What happens next to us? Though. The warning came 6 months after Verath Prime. Intelligence reports flooded into the Valthran Palace from a dozen different sources. They all said the same thing. The Crethon Collective was preparing for war. Not a small conflict. Not border raids. A full invasion targeting both Valthran and human space. Erin called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 30 different species gathered in the Neutral Council station. She presented the evidence to them all. The Crethon fleet has grown to over 300 warships, she told the assembled leaders. They're gathering at the edge of known space. Their target is clear. They want to destroy the human Valthran alliance before it becomes stronger. After that, they'll move on to other systems. Many council members looked worried, but some seemed doubtful. The Crethon have always been aggressive, said Ambassador Kelris of the Brentar Coalition, but they've never launched a war this large. Maybe this is just military exercises. It's not, Doyen said quietly from where he stood beside Erin. Everyone turned to look at him. The human consort who had become famous after Verath Prime. Some species respected him now. Others still thought that victory had been luck. How can you be certain? Kelris asked. Because of how they're positioned. The fleet composition. The supply chains they've established. This isn't defensive. It's not for show. It's preparation for extended warfare. Doyen pulled up a tactical display. They'll attack within 3 months. Probably here, and here. He pointed to 3 systems that connected human and Valthran space. One human's opinion, Kelris said dismissively. He was right about Verath Prime, Erin said coldly. I suggest you listen. The council debated for 2 days. Finally, they agreed to form a defensive coalition. But many species contributed only token forces. They didn't truly believe the threat was real. Erin returned to Valthran space frustrated. They think we're exaggerating, she told Doyen. Then we prepare without them, Doyen said. The Valthran Empire and humanity together will have to be enough. Erin sent word to Earth. The human government responded immediately. They understood the danger. Within weeks, human ships started arriving in Valthran space. What arrived shocked everyone. The human fleet was smaller than expected, only 80 ships compared to the Valthran's 150. But the ships themselves were different from anything the galaxy had seen. They were modular, Sections could detach and recombine for different missions. A single ship could reconfigure from a transport to a fighter carrier to a weapons platform in just a few hours. The weapons were a mix of different technologies. Some borrowed from other species. Some were pure human innovation. All of them were designed for flexibility and surprise, and the crews. The crews were extraordinary. Aaron met with the human fleet commander, Admiral HFY. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an easy smile. She didn't look like a warrior. But when she talked about tactics and strategy, Aaron recognized the same deep competence she'd seen in Doyen. "Your fleet is impressive," Aaron said, "but we're still outnumbered 3-1 by the Krethon." "Numbers aren't everything," HFY said. "The Krethon are strong, but they're predictable. They use standard tactics, standard formations. We've been studying them. We know how to fight them. You're that confident?" "We're human," HFY said simply. "We don't give up. We don't surrender. We win or we die trying. Those are the only options." The combined fleet trained together for a month. Valthran and human ships learned to coordinate. They practiced the flexible, adaptive tactics that humans favored. Many Valthran officers struggled with the approach. They were used to rigid battle plans and clear hierarchies. The human style was more chaotic. Officers at every level could make decisions, change tactics, and adapt to situations as they developed. "It's messy," Admiral Threxus complained to Aaron. "How do you maintain order if everyone can do whatever they want?" "They're not doing whatever they want," Doyen explained. He had become an unofficial liaison between the two fleets. "They're working toward a common goal with shared understanding. Humans train for this. We call it mission-type tactics. You tell people what needs to be accomplished, not exactly how to do it. Then you trust them to figure it out. That sounds like chaos. It looks like chaos, but it's actually very effective. Because when something unexpected happens, and something always happens, everyone can respond immediately without waiting for orders." The Krethon attacked exactly when Doyen predicted, hitting 3 systems simultaneously. The coalition fleet split into 3 groups to respond. Aaron led one group. HFY led another. Admiral Threxus commanded the third. The first battles were brutal. The Krethon were powerful, and their numbers were overwhelming. 2 of the 3 systems fell within days. Thousands died, but the third system held. That was where HFY and her human forces fought. Aaron watched the battle reports in disbelief. The human ships moved like nothing she'd ever seen. They didn't fight in formation. They swarmed. They struck and withdrew. They reconfigured mid-battle. They used the environment, asteroids, gas clouds, planetary rings, as weapons. The Krethon fleet outnumbered the human defenders 2-1. But after 3 days of fighting, the Krethon retreated. They had lost 40 ships. The humans had lost 8. How? Aaron demanded when she could finally talk to HFY directly. "We're hunters," HFY explained. "Humans evolved as pursuit predators on Earth. We're not the fastest or strongest, but we're persistent and clever. We chase our prey until it collapses. We adapt to whatever it does. That's what we did here." But the war was far from over. The Krethon regrouped and launched a massive assault on a colony world called Tarvan. 50,000 civilians lived there, both Valthran and human. The defense looked hopeless. The Krethon landed ground forces. Tens of thousands of soldiers with heavy weapons and armored vehicles. The coalition sent what forces they could, but it would take days to arrive. By then, the colony would fall, unless someone could hold them. 3,000 human Marines were already on Tarvan, part of the colony's regular garrison. Their commander sent a simple message to the fleet: "We'll hold." Aaron didn't understand how that was possible. 3,000 against tens of thousands? It was suicide. But the human Marines did something unexpected. They didn't fight a traditional defensive battle. Instead, they broke into small teams and disappeared into the colony's infrastructure. The tunnels, the buildings, the underground systems, and then they started hunting. The Krethon soldiers found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't pin down. Humans appeared, struck hard, and vanished. Supply convoys were ambushed. Command posts were destroyed. Officers were killed by precise sniper fire from impossible distances. The Krethon had superior numbers and firepower. But the humans had something else. They knew how to fight on a personal level with brutal efficiency. Every Marine was trained in multiple combat styles. They could use any weapon. They could survive in any environment. More importantly, they refused to give up. Even when injured, even when outnumbered, they kept fighting. Aaron watched drone footage of one engagement. A single human marine, a young woman named Sumin, held a choke point against 20 Krethon soldiers for 40 minutes. She used the terrain perfectly, changing positions constantly, making every shot count. When her rifle ran out of ammunition, she switched to a pistol. When that was empty, she used grenades. When those were gone, she fought with a knife. She killed 9 Krethon soldiers before reinforcements arrived, and then she got up and went back to fighting. "This is insane," Lord Vexine said, watching the footage. "She should have retreated." "Retreating would mean giving up the position," Doyen explained quietly. "That position controlled access to civilian shelters. If she retreated, the Krethon would have killed hundreds. So she didn't retreat. But she's one person. She's human," Doyen said. "That means she doesn't quit." None of them quit. The human Marines held Tarvin for 6 days. By the time coalition reinforcements arrived, the Krethon ground forces were shattered. They had lost thousands of soldiers to an enemy that refused to be defeated. The coalition fleet arrived and destroyed the Krethon ships in orbit. The colony was saved. The Battle of Tarvin changed everything. Species across the galaxy had watched the footage. They had seen humans fight with a determination that seemed almost supernatural. These weren't the biggest soldiers or the strongest, but they were the most relentless. More species joined the coalition. They wanted humanity as an ally, not an enemy. The war lasted 8 months total. The Krethon Collective was pushed back system by system. Their fleet was destroyed piece by piece. Finally, they sued for peace. The galaxy had a new understanding of humanity. These strange Deathworld survivors weren't just another species. They were something special, something dangerous, something you wanted on your side. After the war ended, a great celebration was held on the Valthron homeworld. Representatives from dozens of species attended. Aaron stood before them all, Doyen at her side. "We learned something important during this war," Aaron announced. "We learned that strength comes in many forms. The Krethon had numbers and power, but they lost because they didn't have what humanity has: adaptability, determination, and the refusal to ever surrender." She turned to Doyen. "When I married this man, I thought Earth had sent me an ordinary engineer. I thought humans were weak and unimpressive,